This young girl was stuck in the world all alone for years. If you are into these type of stories, y'all, welcome to Vivid Dreams episode 13. I'm going to cut to the chase. Let's get into this vivid dream. Viewer discretion is advised. Emily was a young girl growing up, had all her doctor's appointments, very healthy, liked to play, do all the regular stuff that people do. And as she got older and stuff, she was always the healthy type, she still did her little jogs and runs and stuff. But overall, one day she started getting really sick. And she started trying to do stuff, but she felt woozy and her head started hurting until eventually she hit bed rest. And then before you knew it, she ended up in a hospital. And when she was in this hospital, all she could say is she just couldn't get herself together. She felt woozy, she kept feeling hot, she felt dizzy until eventually she slipped into a full coma. During the time she was in the coma, she would wake up all of a sudden and look around, and she's the only one in the world. Like, there's nothing around her. Nothing she sees. It's all desert and it's clear, and she just see nothing. Way from afar she see woods and stuff. So she starts to walk, and she's hiking and stuff, and she's dehydrated. She's walking across the bare desert, and right as she's walking across the desert, she was finally get all the way across to the other side. And after walking miles and drinking creek water and dealing with different wildlife, snakes and stuff, desert, but she kept going, and she kept trying to figure out where's society at, where's life. I can't find nobody anywhere. And then eventually she'll get to this town, and as she breaking through the brush and the woods and stuff, she'll come up to the back side of this town, and she'll look around. Everything is trash. There's not a person in sight. All the buildings look vacant. It look like these towns haven't been touched in years, decades, centuries. And she was looking around, and she's trying to figure out what it is. She climbed through all the junk and stuff. She'll come out the other side of that area, and she's like, where am I? And then she'll start walking again, and she'll keep hiking and hiking. And she's just looking at all the lost city buildings and stuff all destroyed. There's no wildlife. Like, you see the wildlife is taken over. You see like animals and buildings and trash all over the ground. And eventually she'll make it to what was her loving home. And when she walked up in front of her loving home, she was expecting to see this beautiful house and stuff, but when she walked up, the house was all deteriorated. Looked like no one lived there in years, decades, centuries. So she's trying to figure it out, and she's looking around, and she's just like, what is going on? Where is everybody at? Am I the only one on earth? So she'll leave right there, and she'll keep walking, and then she started going through like a heavy brush and heavy woods and stuff, and at some point she'll feel like something is watching her. Now, meanwhile, in real life, there's some people, they're getting dressed, putting on nice suits and stuff, and, getting ready to have a good time, and, like not really a celebration, but, like just getting formal and nice. And in the real world, as they getting ready, you see the girl, the lady, she's putting on clothes, and then you flip and you see other families, and they getting dressed and they getting all ready and stuff, and everybody's want to head out to this big event, this big celebration. And meanwhile, while that's going on, she on the other side of the world, in her dream, or should I say in her coma, she's still going through the woods, she's running, she feels like that vibe of something's watching her, and you see all this wildlife, mountain lions and stuff, and there's something following her. But she's picking up this will to want to live, and she starts trying to run. She just runs for it and stuff until she comes up behind this big vacant property, and then she would go inside of the property and look around, and she walk up to it, she walk around the brush, she walk to the front side, she starts to go in and stuff, and she go in there and she look around, she realized everything in here is deteriorated. The room, the walls look all unpainted, and the paint all flaked up, and the drywall is all beat up and stuff. And as she's walking through this house, she get a real bad sense of something's watching her. It feel like a shadow figure maybe is in the background. And then as she go down the steps inside of this place, and she go into this weird, creepy basement, then she looks up the steps, and she'll see a shadow on the door of a human figure, almost like a spirit or something maybe, because she just came out of that hallway, and she's scared. And meanwhile, in real life, on the other side, people is actually like, getting in their cars now, and they're driving, and they all going to this big celebration and this big event, that people couldn't wait to be at, just because, they just want to get this behind them and feel free and just, go back to life and just, kind of get the ball back rolling. So as she's in her dream, she's just running and she's trying to figure out, she runs out of this house and she'll go out, run back, she's hungry, she's losing energy, so she finds some vacant house and she goes in there, and inside the house she'll find this old refrigerator. She'll open it up, it's spoiled food like it has been dried out for years and stuff, but she had no choice and it was her energy, so she pick it up and she eat it and everything. And as she's doing that, she's just running and she's lost, and then she find like it's nighttime, it's creepy, she hearing all types of sounds, and she just really can't hold herself together. She's losing it, and she's just like, for some reason she finds this willpower. She says, I have to live, and she just keeps running. So eventually it'll start getting dark, and she said the only place she could return to was back home. Now mind you, in real life this is probably like people like going down now, they all meeting up, they gathering up in this big beautiful place, and this guy got his suit on and he's looking, and then the girl, she's just so devastated, and she's just like, but she has to live with it, what's going on, and eventually, and then she'll finally just say, forget it, I have no choice but to go back home. And as she's running back home, she's fighting all wildlife, it's animals and stuff, and she's finding this willpower, and she finally makes it back into her house. This deteriorated, nasty house, and she'll see a light coming from behind her bedroom door and a cross, and she'll go there and she'll open up the bedroom door, and this big, bright, blinding light. And meanwhile, in the real world, the people is already gathered at this event now. There's a guy out there, he is the spokesman, he's talking and he's telling everybody, there'll be better days and things is gonna be okay. Emily was such a brave person, because the thing is, on that day, this real world, they were getting ready for Emily's funeral. But when Emily walked through that door, she would pop up, and then she'll wake up in real life. And when she woke up, she would sit up and she would look shocked, and she just sit there for a second because she didn't realize, and it's taking her time to register what's going on and stuff. And she'll look around and realize, I'm at my own funeral. She died. The family getting itself together and getting dressed was them all getting ready for her funeral. The drive-in was them driving to the funeral. This big celebration was a celebration of life, because Emily died. And in her death, she came back to life. And she said she was in some other world that was years in the future, and there was no life, humans, and nature has took life back. Nature has taken back over Earth. So a lot of people made fun of her for this, but it's very creditable to say that, the wildlife and all the building stuff we doing in this world, y'all, it's very possible. But if you are into these things and these type of stories and this type of mysterious stuff that happens, then drop a comment and tell me what you guys think happened, because she was in a coma and she woke up and everybody's face was shocked. And then when they looked at her, the husband couldn't register what's going on, the crowd couldn't register what's going on, and then before you knew it, he would run up to her and he'd just hug her. And she'll hug him back and bust out in tears, and then she'll smile, because she was happy to be back into the real world, and he would smile because he was happy to have his wife back. In this story, Diana and Stephen will give birth to a little girl, Amy, that they so adored and they loved, and they always, play with her and pick her up and, really give her like the attention she needed as a young woman, a little girl. So as time would pass, and this little girl would start to get older, they would start noticing weird stuff, like when she had her, food, she would take her stuff and stack her food into a pyramid, and then she would just sit in front of it, and then she would just take her knife and start stabbing into it, and then they say, hey, calm down, stop, what are you doing? Which is a plastic knife, she's still a little girl at the time, so, her parents started really kind of looking into her mental state. But, sometimes she would go back to normal, act normal, play, and have fun, and, do stuff that regular kids do. But every year she gets older, she just get more and more weird, like, kind of stay to herself. and started finding herself in a really dark place. And before you know it, she was isolating herself from everyone. She just stay in this room, and every time she had dreams and stuff, and she's still a little girl at the time, every time she had dreams and stuff, she'd come out the room and she'd just say, "Mommy, I'm sorry about what happened to all the kids at the park today," because the mother was a teacher. And she'd say, "What?" And then she's like, "I'm sorry." And then she'd just go back in the room. Her mother would go to work that day, and when she get there, she'd take the kids out to recess. All of the kids would just like start getting head hurting and headaches, and the parents and the other teachers and staff is kind of running around trying to help each student. And she'll go home and she just think, "My daughter told me this before I left the house." And then she'll go home and her daughter again wants to be in the room in the dark place as always, and she sits on this bed and she kind of thinks to herself, and she really isolated herself at the time because she's starting to become, as she got older, noticing that she was a menace to society. She was not good for society. She knew this, and there was nothing she could really do about it. So she kind of started isolating herself even more and more. She even had a few times when she thought about committing suicide, but she wouldn't. And as time go on and stuff, she'll just come back out the room at night in the middle of the night and go, as she sleeps, she'll come out of the room and say, "Mommy, I'm so sorry about Uncle." And then she's like, "What about my brother?" She's like, "I'm so sorry." And then she just walked back in the room. And when she walked back in the room, later on, about an hour later, she get a phone call that her brother was in this tragic accident and he didn't make it. He was rushed to a hospital and pronounced dead. At this point, the mother and the father, they're going bizarre. They trying to figure out what's going on with my child. They take the child to see different doctors and stuff. And she knew it, and she said, "I'm sorry, Mommy, I just can't stop doing it." And eventually, like, she started hallucinating in the daytime while she's woke, and she thought, she started killing herself, and she couldn't live with herself. But things will only get worse because as time went on, she would tell her parents again in the middle of the night, "I'm so sorry, we shouldn't go to the beach tomorrow." And the mother said, Why shouldn't we go to the beach?" She said, "Because Auntie is going to drown and it's going to be bad and she's going to be so far out in the water, can't no one save her." So she said, "Okay, this has got to stop. Stop these myths. Okay, I understand there's a couple things get you, but that is not going to happen. We're going to go out and have a good time as a family. I really need you just to keep your head on straight." And the daughter said, "I'm trying, but I'm sorry. I seen it in my sleep. It was in my dream." And the next day, they would go to the beach and everything's going all good and they cooking on the grill and talking and laughing. And as Amy is still sitting on the beach, but she's at a table like off to the side and she's just sitting there and she's rocking and she's just keeping this little, weird zone look on, like she's just waiting for it. And when the mother would look over at her and at Amy, and Amy would look back at the mother, and the mother would just shake her head in disappointment, like, "I just really wish my child would be the same little cute baby that I held, the little girl that I played with." But it never happened that way because she just turned out to be this weird, vivid dream having child. And eventually, every time she has these dreams, they just come true. So as they sitting at the cookout stuff and everything, they would hear a scream come from real far away into the water, and they look. And it's their aunt. Some way, somehow, she got caught by the current, playing around, swimming underwater, and it dragged her way out. And the waves of the current was so bad, she couldn't make it back. So she would fight, and she fighting to get her way back. But unfortunately, she would go underwater and disappear. At this point, the family almost had no choice but to try to disown their child. And they would go to different places, and then all of these doctors would get involved and take her psych reaction wards and all types of stuff that was just to try to get her by. And when they try to do that to Amy, it didn't make things better. It made things worse. Because now she was only allowed to come home on the weekends. They kept her locked in this room, and all she could do in this room is do nothing but just look around. The walls are closed, and she's going crazy now because now she really believes that she's just this crazy person. So it didn't even help. So when she go home on the weekends, her dreams would get even worse. And this when the story takes a turn for the worse, and I would classify this to be one of the saddest things to hear. Amy would go to sleep that night. On the weekend she came home, and she would have this dream of her with a knife in her hand and there's blood all over her clothes, and she's standing up in the room, and then she had looked down at her clothes, and all of a sudden she thought, in her dream, she sees her parents' bodies laying on the floor. But the next day, she would say, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry for what's going to happen to you tonight." And now the parents are terrified, but of course this facility that she goes to is closed on the weekends, and it's Saturday, and they have to spend one more night with their child, and they are terrified to be in the house with their own child. And when Amy went to sleep, and they noticed she was sound asleep, they would put a lock on the outside of the door so that she couldn't even get out of the room. Even if she had to use the bathroom, she had to use the bathroom in the room. They put a bucket in there for her. They was just so terrified to be around their own child, their own loving child. And later that night, they would hear something breaking sound that comes from down the hallway, and the parents will pop up. But as they try to run out the room, they is terrified as the daughter is standing there with a knife in her hand, and then she goes in there and she starts charging towards the parents and running down the hallway. The parents are scared. They have no weapons. They in the middle of the night. They just woke up. They shocked and they backing up, and she'll jump on top of the father and stab him. So now he's defenseless. She stabs him right through the chest, so it hits his heart, and his heart bleeds out. And the mother said, "What have you done?" And right as she catches the father and her back is turned, she would feel this knife just come driving straight into her back, and the child would just jump on top of her, and Amy would just start stabbing her. The same loving child that they raised go stabbing her so bad, and you see blood everywhere. It's getting brutal, and then all of a sudden you see her get out, and then she'll go in her room, and she'll wake out of this trance, and she would just break down crying, realizing that she had no control over herself, and her dream just came true. Once this happened and this broke and went viral everywhere, the government did their best to cover it up, so they covered it up and they moved her to an unknown disclosed facility. And up to this day, right now in 2023, she should be the age of 36. Katie and Christopher will be married for 5 years before they give birth to a little girl named Charlotte. And Charlotte in this story was a happy young lady. She used to always run around, play, and really connected with her parents and stuff. And they moved into this house and finally got their life settled, and everything they expected and wanted and needed was happening. So this life was going perfectly fine. They had a perfect neighborhood. The neighbors was fun, and the neighborhood was quiet. You know, you had a little police patrol at night and stuff. So, you know, they were really in a safe place until November the 14th, where the break-ins would start happening. On November the 14th, they would all get settled in for the night, and they would go to sleep, and throughout the course of the night, they would hear sirens come down to a house that's like right near their house. And they'll get up, and the husband, you know, he wear his shorts and his tank top, and the wife would get up, and they hear noises, and they go down there, and they notice that one of the police is at one of the neighbors' houses that's 2 houses down. During the investigation and them being nosy, they go downstairs, look out the door, and they see the investigation going on. They see the body coming out of the house, and now they know someone in the neighborhood had died. They know people in the house, but they don't sure who died yet. And all of a sudden, the police come and say, "Hey, did you guys hear any type of noises or anything throughout the course of the night?" And they say, "No, we didn't hear anything, actually, until you guys pulled up with your sirens and stuff. I mean, it's been a quiet night. This has always been a quiet neighborhood. It's never really been." And the police also say, "Yeah, well, you know, I've been patrolling this neighborhood for over 10 years, and I've really never heard of a break-in as well." And basically, they would say that, share a couple more words, and then they part ways. After the police has said his few words in exchange, and then he left and he part ways after asking them questions, and they went back in the house and they went to sleep. The next day, they'll find out that 2 people in the house actually got killed. It was a husband and wife that lived there, and they both were killed. Someone came in the house in the middle of the night and shot him point blank range, and then the good 2 days later, they'd be asleep again, and all of a sudden, they would hear sirens and stuff around 5 o'clock in the morning come barreling down this street, and they hear fire trucks and stuff. And all of a sudden, another neighbor's house was broken into. And this round, that house was actually caught on fire. They burnt the house down, and one of the persons in there had passed away, you know, smoke ventilation, and the other 2 had made it out. So Katie and them is like, okay, now this neighborhood is starting to get a little, scary. And Christopher is agreeing. He's like, I don't know if this is a perfect neighborhood for us to be in. So 2 days later, they go to sleep at night about 5:30 a.m. They would hear the sirens coming to a house close to them, which is their neighbor's house. And now they like something weird is going on in this block, and then the police will come and the crime scene tape will go up, and this round somebody else was shot point blank range. It was one of the neighbors and very good friend of theirs. And Christopher was like, you know what, this is getting too close to home. So they will pack up and then they will move to another whole area. Once moving to this area and getting settled in, Katie would go down to the local school and enroll Charlotte in school. And now Charlotte's going to school in this new neighborhood. She's making new friends, and days will go past. And, the husband, Christopher's getting back to work. And Katie, she's doing her thing. She's going back to work. And Charlotte, she's doing her thing in school. And everything's running smooth until the following 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, Charlotte will go to school and she's hearing around her friends, and her friends talking about something. You heard about a house that got robbed and somebody came in there and shot 2 people point blank range and all this other, crazy jazz. And she's like, oh my God, that reminds me of my old neighborhood. And she got to tell them stories about her old neighborhood to her friends, and friends like, ooh, yeah, that kind of sounds like similar to what happened. Maybe you should say something to police. And she was like, no, my parents just said we should probably stay out of it. And then all of a sudden they would go home and they getting settled in a new house and they go to sleep that night. And that night it'll start all over. They would hear ambulance come barreling down the street. They hear fire trucks, police officers, and everything come speeding down the road. And it'll go to the house across from them. Somebody broke in the house across from them, went upstairs, shot both people in bed, point blank range, but didn't take anything, left all their assets, left all their money and stuff. So now the police is like, okay, that's kind of crazy because this neighborhood never had that type of drama or anything like that. And then a couple days later, you would see another house breaking and the police coming around 5 o'clock in the morning. And it started all over again. So that time it hit like 4 houses, but this one really struck close because the 5th house they hit, in the middle of the night, somebody came in, went up the steps, pointed the gun point blank range right at Katie, and fired one single shot right into the middle of her head. Katie died instantly. David will wake up, see his wife dead. Her daughter comes running in the room. She's crying. And there's no sign of forced entry. There's no sign of break-in. They just know whoever this is, the police is thinking, this person's getting really professional. And, we got to find this person fast because now he's hitting another neighborhood. Meanwhile, they get up dressed for the funeral and stuff, and they get, their wife buried, and, Charlotte is now looking at her mom, and she's just, she's devastated, and they get through the funeral and they get past this. So now it's just Christopher and Charlotte left. Meanwhile, after the funeral service and stuff was over, Charlotte nor did Christopher could withstand being in that house at this point. So they both decided to pack up and go to a local hotel, stay there for a couple of days so they could figure things out, and maybe David can get an apartment and, just something for them too. And, they still moaning over the whole death of the mother thing and somebody coming in their house and shooting point blank range. And then the father, waking up, Christopher waking up and looking at, it's just a lot to process for them. So at this point, they went on, he got a hotel, they sold the home. And they found the buyer and they sold the home, and they went out and they got themselves a nice apartment. And all of a sudden, days later, it'll start all over again. Somebody in the apartment downstairs on the bottom floor, they'll hear police and stuff 5 o'clock in the morning coming to the building. And then all of a sudden, someone was shot, point blank range. And then all of a sudden, the following night, you would hear the police going to another building. And they're going there and someone was shot point blank range. And then this would go on to happen numerous times until it happened to the unit next door to them. And the father said, this is getting crazy. we have to move. So when they moved into this new house, they actually moved next door to a police officer. And he was a state police officer. He was well trained. You know, he had a K9, and, you know, he was one of those fitted type guys where you know, somebody come in that house, you got trouble. And later that night, someone tried their hand. The officer would report that he was asleep, and he would hear a glass break on the backside of his house. And when he comes in there, the suspect comes up, he points the gun, and right as he points the gun, the officer was already prepared. He lunged forward, knocked the gun out of the suspect's hand, punched the suspect right in the face. The suspect hits the ground. He puts the suspect in cuffs, gets him up, and then he'll walk him to the front, and then he'll call 911 and say, hey, this is Officer such, give his badge number. And right there, when when the police came, this big investigation came about all the past murders and everything, and all the locations the murders happened at and stuff, and they would find out that this has been occurring for a long, long time, and we've been waiting to catch this suspect. But at the same time, Charlotte hears all this, and she gets up and she runs downstairs, and she's looking for her dad, and her dad daddy must have already got up and heard that too and ran next door. So she go out there to look for her dad, and when she goes out there, she will see her dad standing there, but he's in cuffs. The reason he's in cuffs because when the officer put those cuffs on him and got him up, he smacked him, and then he snapped to, and he panicked, and he looked around, and he's like, what's going on? What am I doing in this house? And he was sound asleep because he did all this while sleepwalking every night. So let's rewind time. That means when they moved into that first neighborhood, Christopher would get up and he'll, middle of the night, go down to the other house, walk in there, shoot both people in the head, point blank range, and leave, and then go back home and get in bed, and then wake up when the police and hearing the sirens come riding down the street to go investigate a murder that he just committed in his sleep. And then they'll get back up, and he don't even know he left, and go down there and you know, be shocked by it. So the killer that they were moving away from, they couldn't get away from because it was him. So that also means the night that he thought somebody came up the steps and went in the room and shot his wife point blank range in the head, no. That means he rolled over in his sleep, reached in the drawer, grabbed his pistol, rolled back over, pointed it at her, shot her, put the gun back, and then woke up because the daughter came running in the room. Charlotte came running in the room yelling, and it woke him up out of his trance, and he looked down and realized his wife was dead and said, I can't believe I slept through this. And the entire time, Christopher, was the one committing all these murders. When they moved into the apartment and then somebody died downstairs, that means him in his sleep went downstairs. And the police and the court and stuff did not believe this. So they did an experiment. They put him in a cell, loaded a gun with blanks, and then left it there. And eventually, they just waited. 2 days ago passed, nothing happens. But that night, something would happen. He'd get up in the middle of the night, take the gun, and start firing at the guards. But, of course, it was blanks. They went in there, they shook him and woke him up. And that's why he's not on the top crime murder list or anything, is because they justified me. He was sleepwalking. It's a disorder. So it's not countable, you know. So he didn't go to jail for it. They moved him far out in this island where he just lives by himself. And the only people he gets to see are doctors, lawyers, attorneys, or anything that's important like that goes and pays his bills for him. And his daughter still comes and see him all the time. And his daughter, as he was sleeping at night and stuff, killing people in the past, and, you know, not knowing he did it, not intentionally killing people in the past, His daughter, on the other hand, she got older, she graduated college, she got a nursing degree, and then she went on and got her doctor's degree, and she became a very big-time doctor. So the past was about murders, and now she's all about saving lives. That's gonna do it, guys. If you got something out of my story, please hit the like button. Turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my 3 to 4 weekly uploads. And if you don't want to watch them singly, every Sunday I post the top 3 for the 3 videos I posted out of the week. I put them all into one so you can binge watch. That's going to do it, guys. See y'all.